With that, let's start with Jerry, and then everybody will have a say, and then we'll get some discussion if people have questions. Jerry?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'd like to start out by talking a bit about something you've probably already observed. All five of us up here on the panel are white males.
Speak for yourself. I'm on the
That is something that we didn't want it to be limited. We wanted more diversity. My attempts to invite a couple of Latino journalists whom I know and have known for many years were not successful. And Mark made attempts, I think, was it 2 or 3 women journalists or bloggers who are, I think, you regarded as advocates of comprehensive immigration reform. And so we were unable to do that, but I am delighted to have the panelists that we do have with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say, not just about what I wrote, but I'm hoping we can have a broad discussion about the overall issue of the press and immigration. Having said that, I'd like to begin by taking a few minutes to talk about how I got into this issue. I worked for the Arizona Republic for 16 years. Started with the Republic in 1986 as their northern Mexico and border correspondent, living in Hermosillo, which is the capital of Sonora, the state that neighbors Arizona to the south. I started in September of '86. That was a month before Congress passed the Immigration Reform and Control Act, 2 months before President Reagan signed it in the Oval Office with the claim that employer sanctions would stop the attraction, the draw of illegal immigration. It was a rather firm statement that the president made during the signing ceremony. Well, in 1988, I moved to Phoenix, where the Republic is based, and worked for most of the next decade on the investigative team of the paper. And this corresponded with the time of a big influx of illegal immigration into Arizona and broadly into the country as a result of the peso collapse that happened at the end of the Carlos Salinas administration in Mexico. There was a terrible devaluation of the peso, huge traumatic job loss, a real shock to the economy. Meanwhile, the Arizona economy was doing well, so there was a big influx into the state. And I saw it in my neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I noticed it most closely in an elementary school not far from where I lived, where I saw, just by observing and by being interested in Mexico and speaking the language, that the teachers were struggling because few of them spoke Spanish, and of course the kids, very few of them spoke any English. And so a couple of mornings a week before going in and doing my newspaper hours, I would go and work with a second grade teacher at Westwood Elementary, just trying to help the familiarization process. And that experience working at the school gave me 2 firm ideas. First, that we as a society, as a nation, should do all that we can to help immigrants integrate into our society. I think especially with their children. I think their success will be our success. Their failure would be our failure. So I firmly believe in working as systematically for immigrant integration. But the second belief is that in order to be successful, immigration must be limited, because if it's not limited, it can overwhelm both the resources and the will of the host society. I saw that quite a bit in Phoenix. There was a sense of shock during this period because in 1990, the estimated unauthorized population, illegal immigrant population in Arizona was 89,000. By 2008, it was 560,000 people in a state of less than 7 million. And so there was a real sense of disorientation about what was going on and confusion. In 2000, I came back to Washington as the Republic's correspondent here in D.C., but I remained fascinated by immigration. And when I had a chance 2 years later to be the immigration and border correspondent for the Copley newspapers, I jumped at it and took every chance I had to go back to the Arizona border or the Texas border, California border. I am fascinated by the border. And there was an extraordinary influx across the Arizona border at that time. It was really almost, it's a cliche to say, but it was almost a biblical proportions. There were 3,000 to 5,000 people coming across the border illegally every night. It was an astonishing influx into the state. And that influx, I think, was the fulfillment of a sort of a prophecy that was made in an editorial published in the New York Times 30 years ago now, 1983. The Times editorial page wrote this: "For reasons of vitality, humanity, and history, America wants and needs immigrants. What it does not need is such an uncontrollable flood of illegal migrants that it tries public patience and foments a backlash against all newcomers. That's the genuine danger." And I think that's what happened in Arizona. And now, that was 30 years ago. The New York Times, since that time, has departed from that moderate, compassionate, pragmatic view of immigrants. That's how I would characterize it anyway. And I think I was surprised over the years to see it become a radical voice that has sort of consistently attacked those who believe in limiting immigration as motivated by racism and bigotry. And I wanted to understand how that happened. That's sort of launched this project. That was the seed of it. And I've said enough and would like to pass the baton.